Hey guys, thanks for joining us for this latest episode of Snack Bites on characters who we miss most in The Walking Dead. So obviously we're gonna lose some more people before season 8 is up, and we just wanted to take this time to reflect on people we've already lost, but more importantly, those who we really miss. And my first pick was gonna be Noah. Noah probably had in my opinion, thus far, Noah had like the worst death that to the point where I couldn't rewatch it. Like I can rewatch, as bad as the Negan lineup was, I can rewatch that. Noah's death, like I have to look away because it's so disgusting and terrible. I was intrigued with this character when we first met him in Grady. I thought he was one of the most interesting aspects of that, even though I know it was Beth centric. To me, learning about Noah and his family and what his hopes and dreams were intriguing to me. And frankly, and I can't recall the actor's name, but I've always liked him ever since the Everybody Hates Chris days, and I thought he brought the character to the screen very well, and I thought his exit was very premature. So it's not a matter of losing characters for me per se, but if I feel that we did not get enough quality time, then that makes me miss the character all the more. And I definitely feel like we didn't get enough quality time with Noah, and it felt like he was being integrated into the Grimes family. There's actually this really great scene early on in season 5 when they get to Alexandria. Not early in season 5, but when they get to Alexandria. I think it's that first night, and Rick goes and he puts a blanket first on Carl and then on Noah, like he's treating them both the same. And
I
then
remember that.
yeah, it was at night. It was right when he talks to Michonne at the window about do they trust this place. And after, I don't know if it's before or after that scene, but there's another moment where Noah and Carl are sitting at the table playing cards, and Michonne is standing over them, like just like enjoying the moment of them playing together. And I wanted to see, like, having Carl have a proper contemporary at that point in time. I thought that would have been nice, and Noah seemed to have been that person. And then they send this guy who has to limp on a run for reasons I still don't understand to this day, and then they kill him. I'm just saying, like, he can't run. He can protect himself if he needs to, but I didn't understand putting him in a situation where he may have to literally run and he has to drag his leg behind him. But anyway, Noah is my first choice.
And to be fair, I don't think that Tyrese expected Noah to do something so dumb as to just run away from the group into a house that's most certainly infested by walkers. That's not what
I was talking about. I'm talking about the episode where he died, where he went on the run with Glenn, Tara, and that douche who shot himself, and Deanna's son. It's like, why was he even out
Spencer?
Not Spencer. Spencer got killed brother.
Yeah. I don't remember what his name was, except that he got punched in the face by Glenn.
Exactly.
And speaking of Glenn, he's my number one choice for people that I miss. Yeah, I was really bummed out by that death. I kind of had a feeling it was coming, obviously, because of the comics. I did not expect it to be as hard to watch as it was. I kind of expected, because I had, read ahead a little bit and just, like, looked at the panels just to, like, prepare myself for what I potentially was going to have to witness. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't think they're going to do it that way on TV. It's, like, almost too much. It's, like, too sadistic. The way that he, like, really elongates his death and, like, taunts him and stuff, says all these, like, really fucked up things. I thought that they were going to tone that down because I didn't think that, quite frankly, the censors would allow that scene in its, like, entirety. And boy, was I wrong. They literally did it almost frame for frame exactly the way it happens in the comics. Even the monologue that Negan says when he comes out is the exact same. And they made his death look exactly like it did in the comics. It was horrifying. That was actually the night that we met, was at the season 7 premiere.
Oh, was it?
And there were people, like, crying around me. I mean, it was just, like, it was just a horrifying thing to watch.
I wish I could have seen your face.
I felt terrible for Chris Hardwick because, like, he had to do, Talking Dead afterwards. And he, like, the episode ends and Chris Hardwick's like, yeah, ready for talking? I mean, trying to, like, lift the crowd up after that fiasco is just, I'm sure that wasn't easy. So yeah, and plus he was always the sensible one. He was one of the smart ones. He always like was very rational and calm, which is I liked that about him the most. He was not a person who would like let his temper get away from him and do really stupid things as a result of his temper, unlike some people like Daryl. Anyway, so I feel like we lost a lot when we lost him, because now in a lot of ways there's kind of like nobody around to calm everybody down and talk them out of doing stupid things like there used to be. So that is something that I feel is really lacking right now in the group.
Okay, well, speaking of Glenn, my next choice is actually Abraham, a character who I feel that people seem to have forgotten even exists. Because whenever you mention Negan in that bat scene, you only ever hear about Glenn. You never hear about the guy who got it first, Abraham. Um, Abraham was actually one of my favorite characters of the show. He was the inadvertent comic relief. I feel like there are other characters, I'm not going to get into names right now, who try to be funny. But if you have to try, then it's not that funny at that point. So with Abraham, just his whole personality and his colorful sayings were comedic in themselves. Like, he didn't have to try; it just kind of was, and he was definitely a force to be reckoned with, and very integral to the group. And a lot of people, I think, forget that. I definitely, and the difference for me between Abraham and Glenn was that we've been with Glenn since season 1. We didn't have as nearly as much time with Abraham, and for those particular reasons, in addition to him being my favorite, I felt like he definitely deserved a bit more time for us to get to know him and see more of what he could do. So yeah, and Michael Cullits is awesome. So I was really disappointed that they weren't gonna have Abraham in Fear. I feel like that's a huge missed opportunity, but whatever. I'm not writing the show, but yeah. So Abraham is my next pick, and for our third pick, we actually have the same character. Would you like to introduce it?
Wait, I didn't get to say my second pick.
You sure didn't. So
yeah, see that? That's what she does. Just dominates the show, makes it all about her. Anyway, my second pick, not my third. God.
I'm sorry.
My second pick is actually Bob. And so, much like Abraham, I felt like we didn't get enough time with Bob. So here's the thing that I really liked about Bob that made him far different than the rest of the characters on the show. First of all, he is the only character, I believe, I'm not sure if this is true, I believe, that did not cry and get super sad immediately when he realized he was going to die.
Well, he was the most, that was why Sasha liked him, because he could find the positivity.
He could find positivity in anything. He was like, he had this like amazing ability, and it kind of alludes to maybe that's like a skill that he had to develop in order to like deal with his alcoholism, because him and Daryl have this conversation like really, really early on. I think like just like a couple episodes into him being on the show, where he's like caught stealing. He mentions to Daryl like earlier that he would do anything for a bottle or something like that. And then at the end of this run that they're all on, something happens, and like for some reason Daryl kind of figures out that there's something in the bag that Bob is protecting vehemently. So he like rips it out of his hands and looks inside of it, and sure enough, there's a bottle of booze. And Daryl basically is like, if you have one sip, I'm gonna beat your ass and all this stuff. And so we know he has a problem with alcohol. And I thought that was going to be like an ongoing thing, like in the show. I thought that theme was going to come up over and over again, and instead they killed him off really, really early. In it, a particularly messed up way. He had his leg cannibalized by Gareth.
They had to watch.
But again, like, the ability to find humor in everything, instead of like freaking out and having a panic attack, he starts laughing maniacally and tells him that he's been bit and he's tainted meat, and then like Gareth just freaks out. And
if Bob hadn't been bitten, I don't think he would have reacted that way.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like he can kind of do that in any situation. I mean, he was always, like, the most positive person.
He knew he was going to die anyway. Like, if he wasn't going to die and you have to watch yourself be eaten, I think he would have acted totally differently.
Yeah.
It was more of a, haha, you're eating zombie meat, bitch. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
While also going crazy at this, like, can you imagine someone eating your flesh right in front of you, like, that was just disgusting.
That was a really messed up scene.
Made a mistake when that first aired. I made a mistake, and I was actually eating during the episode. I was eating meat and totally could not finish my dinner. Like, oh, I've made a mistake.
That was really, really gross.
I stopped eating during that show after that.
He also, he had kind of like a very brief but tender and sweet relationship with Sasha that unfortunately, obviously, ended when he died. He said something that, like, I thought was interesting because you know how, like, everybody comes into the room and says goodbye to him when he's, like, fevering and, like, he's on his way out clearly. And, like, Rick had kind of an unusual reaction to him. Like, when he was gonna die, he like sat down on the bed next to him. And he was holding Judith.
Well, Bob asked him to see Judith.
Yeah.
And he says, "Don't worry, she's not gonna hurt me."
Yeah, exactly. But it was just I don't know. I thought that was like a special moment though when in the end he said, what did he say? It was something like it was some kind of goodbye. And Rick was just like, "I'll take it," and he just kind of smiled, and he held Bob's hand, and you just kind of see like a tear roll down his face, and he like stares off into the distance, and that was kind of like their last interaction together. I can't think of like any other death where Rick said goodbye to somebody like that. Like, you could tell that he was really upset by that one. So
he does cry for Beth. Like they do this close up after she shot in the face, and he's just like his eyes are all tearing.
That one's different though. That was like shock she got her brains blown out. They didn't get a chance to say goodbye. Like, this was like more of like
they had a chance to do properly.
Yeah, it was like a friendship, like a saying goodbye to a close friend. So he seemed like he influenced everybody really positively around him. So that's why I kind of miss him, because I feel like he could have done so much good if he had lived. So that's my second choice.
And now our third choice.
Our third choice.
Hun.
Herschel.
Yeah.
Definitely Herschel.
I almost said the OG voice of reason, but really that's Dale. But I feel like Herschel did it better. Herschel was that old grandpa who I actually liked.
He also had one leg.
Boy, you lose a limb and you messed up in this. Yes, Herschel. I mean, at first he was very uptight and like standoffish, and then once you got to know him,
man.
well, once he got to know them, and once he came around to acknowledging the truth of the world, he was like this really great, wise person. Like, every day you risk your life. It just depends what you're risking your life for.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. Or when he tells Rick that awesome metaphor about replanting and regrowing. And then Michonne shows up. It's so many great moments with Herschel. And gosh, what a messed up ending that was. I wasn't expecting that at all, for him to get his head hacked off.
I wish he had died in a little bit more of a dignified way. I mean, unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Good Lord, he was smiling.
Yeah.
Because he thought Rick had made his point, and then it was like, Lar.
He also had one of my all-time favorite lines from the entire show in season 2, when, separated on the highway or something. They're trying to figure out like whether or not Rick's gonna go back and try and find everyone. This is like after the place burned down, the barn.
Yeah.
And Herschel says something. He says, "Just go on. If a walker gets me, so be it." And then there's like this pause, and he's like, Jesus promised a second coming and the rising of the dead. I just thought that he had something a little different in mind. I just loved that line. It was like so perfect in every way.
I remember him saying that, but I don't remember the leaving him part.
It's because they had to go in like separate directions on the freeway where all the cars were back. Because remember they left all the supplies for Sophia like on that hood. That was like their
and they were like, "Well, we can take that now."
Everybody went back there once the barn like burned down or whatever.
Except for Andrea.
Except for Andrea.
Go figure.
Yeah, she's a dummy. But yeah, and so he said that to Rick like during that whole thing, which I just thought was like hilarious. He was another person who was very good at finding the positivity in a really messed up situation. So, anything else?
Andre mentioned to Sasha only because I feel like she and Negan were like kind of vibing, and I'm curious in what direction that would have gone on, which I have been expressing in a fan fiction called Spin, and will be updated soon.
If you guys like our content, make sure to subscribe right here. Also, follow us on Instagram at rlrichonne, and also check out the brand new blog, thelivingrichonne.com. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.